She was born into a warrior race but had no legs, cast aside, forgotten, until the day she outsmarted a military-grade combat mech with nothing but scrap metal and raw determination. And two humans were there to witness it all. Picture this, the scrapyard planet of Kaelra Prime, where broken warships go to die. Smoke rising from twisted metal. The acrid smell of burned plasma conduits hanging in the air. And there, crawling beneath the burning wreckage of a downed transport, is Kaelra. She's not what you'd expect from the Varnai warrior race. No towering 7-foot frame, no razor-sharp exoskeletal armor gleaming in the artificial sunlight. Instead, she's dragging herself through the debris using only her arms, her lower body ending where her torso meets empty air. Above her, a Kaelran security drone hovers its red scanning beam, sweeping the wreckage. One of the new AI models, military-grade, programmed to eliminate any salvagers on site. Its weapon systems are charging with that distinctive whine that means someone's about to become a very brief flash of light. But Kaelra isn't running, she's working. Her fingers dance across a makeshift control pad she's jury-rigged from spare parts. Circuit boards from 3 different manufacturers wiring that shouldn't work together but somehow does, and a power core she pulled from a children's toy. The kind of engineering that would make a certified technician weep. The drone's targeting system locks onto her heat signature. Weapons fully charged. 3 seconds to firing. 2 seconds. 1. The drone simply stops, hovers for a moment like it's confused, then crashes into the ground with a satisfying metallic crunch. And from the shadows, 2 humans step forward. They've been watching the entire time. The first human is Jace Morrison, a field engineer with the Earth Colonial Survey Corps. Tall, lean, with the kind of steady hands that come from years of working with delicate equipment. He looks at Kaelra with genuine curiosity, not pity. The second is Sergeant Nyla Quinn, a combat specialist who's seen enough action to know talent when she sees it. Stocky, alert, with scars that tell stories she doesn't like to share. Her hand rests casually on her sidearm, but her eyes are calculating, not hostile. Kaelra stares up at them from the ground, her homemade jammer still smoking in her grip. Among her people, the Varnai, showing weakness is a death sentence. But showing fear, that's worse than death. That's dishonor. So she doesn't show either. Impressive work, Jace says, crouching down to examine the crashed drone. I've never seen anyone hack a Kaelran security unit with civilian components. Kaelra's response is a grunt. She's already pulling herself toward another piece of wreckage, dismissing them entirely. In her world, kindness from strangers usually comes with a price tag she can't afford. But something makes her pause. Maybe it's the way Jace doesn't immediately offer to help her move. Maybe it's how Sergeant Quinn keeps her distance, but doesn't look away. Most people either stare in fascination or avoid looking at all. These two are treating her like a person, not a curiosity. You live out here, Quinn asks, gesturing at the makeshift shelter Kaelra has built from cargo containers and salvaged hull plating. Another grunt. Kaelra isn't much for conversation, especially not with off-worlders who will be gone by morning. But they don't leave. To understand why this moment matters, you need to know about the Varnai. They're a proud species, descendants of predators who crawled out of the sulfur swamps of Varn Major over 2 million years ago. Evolution gave them natural armor plating, retractable claws, and a healing factor that can seal wounds in minutes. Their society values strength above all else because for most of their history, strength was the only thing standing between them and extinction. Kaelra was born during the Festival of Sharpened Spears, the most sacred time in Varnai culture. Her parents, both decorated warriors, expected their child to emerge from the birthing chamber with the traditional warrior markings already forming on her carapace. Instead, they got a daughter whose spine ended abruptly at the lower torso. No legs, no tail, no way to perform the ritual combat dances that every Varnai child masters before their 3rd molting. In Varnai society, there's a word for beings like Kaelra Kethmiran. It translates roughly to incomplete offering. It's not a clinical term, it's a condemnation. Her parents tried to love her, but that love doesn't overcome cultural programming that runs millions of years deep. By age 5, the Kaelra was sleeping in the servants' quarters. By age 7, she was eating leftover scraps. By age 10, she'd been quietly transferred to a special facility on the outskirts of the capital. The facility was really a warehouse where the Varnai stored their embarrassments. The malformed, the mentally unstable, the ones who couldn't fight. Officially, it didn't exist. Unofficially, it was where broken Varnai went to be forgotten. Kaelra had a twin brother named Dareth. Same birthing chamber, same genetic material, but he emerged perfect. Symmetrical armor, plating powerful limbs, the kind of natural grace that marked him as future warrior elite. He visited her exactly 3 times after she was transferred. The last time he was 12 years old and wearing his first set of cadet armor. "I'm sorry, Whitbar," he told her through the facility's reinforced glass. "But I can't keep coming here. It's not good for my advancement scores." That was the day Kaelra stopped expecting rescue from her own people. But she didn't stop learning. The facility had one advantage. It was built on top of an old military research station, and the previous occupants had left behind a lot of interesting equipment. While the other residents spent their days staring at walls or rocking back and forth, Kaelra taught herself electronics. She started with simple things: jury-rigging the lights to stay on past curfew, modifying the food dispensers to give her double rations, small rebellions that no one noticed. Then she graduated to bigger projects. By age 15, she'd hacked into the facility's security system and given herself clearance to access the abandoned research levels. By 16, she was rebuilding broken maintenance drones and selling them to off-world traders. By 18, she'd saved enough credits to buy passage off Varn Major entirely. She chose Kaelra Prime because it was as far from home as she could get. A scrapyard planet where nobody asked questions and survival depended on intelligence, not pedigree. The perfect place for someone who'd been declared incomplete to prove she was anything but. Which brings us back to this moment. Kaelra in her shelter, 2 humans refusing to leave, and a question hanging in the air that none of them have asked yet. What happens when the Forgotten finally find someone willing to remember them? Jace is the first to break the silence. "We're not here by accident," he says. "We've been tracking energy signatures from modified tech. Your jamming device just lit up our sensors like a Christmas tree." Kaelra finally looks up. Her eyes are the pale green of deep ocean water, intelligent and calculating. "Christmas tree, human expression," Quinn explains, "means something bright and attention-getting." "I know what it means," Kaelra snaps. "I'm asking why you'd compare military-grade electronics to a decorative plant." Jace grins. "Fair question. Humans have weird metaphors." For the first time in years, Kaelra almost smiles. Almost. "What do you want?" she asks. It's Sergeant Quinn who answers. "We want to know if you're interested in putting those skills to better use than disabling security drones." Kaelra's expression hardens. "I'm not for hire." "We're not offering employment," Jay says quickly. "We're offering partnership." Now she does smile, but it's not a pleasant expression. "Partnership. Right. Let me guess you need a local guide who knows the salvage yards. Someone expendable who can crawl into spaces where your precious human bodies won't fit. Someone whose death won't require filing paperwork with the Colonial Authority." Quinn's hand tightens on her weapon, but Jace holds up a calming gesture. "Actually," he says, "we were thinking more along the lines of collaboration. You see, we've got a problem that requires a very specific skill set. The ability to interface with technology in ways that conventional programming doesn't account for. The kind of intuitive understanding that can't be taught in engineering school." He pauses, watching her face carefully. The kind of understanding that comes from a lifetime of making broken things work. The words hit Kaelra like a physical blow. Not because they're cruel, but because they're true. And for the first time in her adult life, someone is suggesting that her brokenness might actually be valuable. But she's been disappointed before. Hope is a luxury she learned to live without. "I work alone," she says, turning back to her salvage. "So did we," Quinn replies. "Until today." They leave her with a comm unit and coordinates to their temporary base. No pressure, no demands, just an open door. It's been so long since anyone offered Kaelra a choice that she's forgotten how terrifying freedom can be. That night, lying in her makeshift bed surrounded by the familiar hum of recycled air and distant machinery, she stares at the comm unit for hours. What if they're different? What if they're not? What if the thing she's been most afraid of isn't rejection, but acceptance? Because if she lets herself believe that someone might actually value what she has to offer, and she's wrong, it might finally break the part of her that she's worked so hard to keep intact. The part that still believes she's worth something. 3 days pass before Kaelra touches the comm unit. Not because she's afraid she tells herself, Because she's practical. Trust is expensive and her credit balance is already running low. But on the third night, when the automated recycling systems cycle through their maintenance routine and the scrapyard falls into its deepest silence, she finally activates the device. Jace's voice comes through, clear and warm. "Kaelra, you there?" "I'm here." "Good. I was starting to think you'd tossed our comm into a smelter." "I considered it." She pauses. "What kind of collaboration are we talking about?" "The kind that might interest someone who rebuilt a military jammer using parts from a toy robot." She can hear the smile in his voice, and despite herself, she finds it infectious. "You researched my work." "Quinn ran a full analysis on your device. The power regulation alone should have been impossible with those components." "You're not just good with electronics, Kaelra. You're exceptional." Exceptional. When was the last time someone used that word to describe her? When was the last time someone used any positive word to describe her? "Meet us tomorrow," Jace continues. "Coordinates are on your comm, and Kaelra, bring your tools." The meeting point is an abandoned manufacturing complex about 20 kilometers from her shelter. As Kaelra approaches, dragging a salvage cargo sled loaded with her equipment, she can see lights moving inside the main building. Professional lighting rigs, the kind used for delicate technical work. These humans aren't just passing through, they're setting up shop. Inside, she finds something that makes her stop breathing for a moment. It's a workshop. Not just any workshop, but the kind of high-tech fabrication facility that exists only in her dreams. 3D molecular printers, quantum welders, neural interface calibration stations, and in the center of it all, something that makes her heart race: a pair of legs. Not just any legs. These are TNS-07 adaptive prosthetics, military grade, with full neural integration capability. She's seen the specs in stolen technical manuals. Each leg costs more than most people make in a lifetime. "They're beautiful," she whispers before she can stop herself. Jace emerges from behind a workstation, his hands stained with fabrication lubricant. They're also completely unstable. The neural interface keeps rejecting biological integration. 3 test subjects, 3 catastrophic failures. The manufacturer recalled the entire line. Kaelra moves closer, her engineering mind already analyzing the design. The rejection isn't biological, it's psychological. The interface is trying to impose movement patterns instead of learning them. It's fighting the user instead of adapting to them. Quinn steps out of the shadows, watching Kaelra's reaction carefully. "You can tell all that just by looking." "I can tell all that because I've been thinking about prosthetics since I was 5 years old." Kaelra's voice is matter of fact, but there's an undercurrent of old pain. "I've studied every design, every failure, every breakthrough. Most engineers design for perfect integration. They assume the user wants to move like everyone else." She reaches out to touch the prosthetics neural interface port, her fingers tracing the delicate circuitry. "But what if the user doesn't want to be like everyone else? Do they want to be better?" Jace and Quinn exchange a look. This is exactly what they were hoping to hear. "The military gave up on these after the 3rd failure," Jace explains. "Too dangerous, too unpredictable. But we think the problem isn't the hardware. It's the software," Kaelra finishes. "The neural mapping protocols are too rigid." "Exactly. And we need someone who thinks outside conventional parameters. Someone who's spent their life making impossible things work." Kaelra is quiet for a long moment, still staring at the prosthetics. In her mind, she can see exactly how to fix them. The modifications would be extensive, dangerous, and completely unauthorized. They would also be brilliant. "Why?" she asks finally. "Why bring this to me? You're humans. You could requisition better equipment, hire certified engineers, work through proper channels." Quinn steps forward. "Because proper channels are what got those test subjects hurt. Because certified engineers are the ones who designed a system that fights its users instead of helping them." She pauses, choosing her words carefully. "And because sometimes the best solutions come from people who've been solving impossible problems their entire lives." It's the closest thing to a compliment Kaelra has received in years, and it hits harder than she expects. But she's learned to be suspicious of kindness, especially from strangers. "What's the catch?" "No catch," Jay says. "But there is a timeline. We've got authorization to test the modifications for exactly 30 days. After that, the prosthetics get shipped back to Earth for disposal." 30 days. It's not much time, but it's more opportunity than she's had since leaving Varn Major. I'll need access to the fabrication equipment. Full access, no restrictions. Done. And I work my way. No supervision, no progress reports, no interference. Quinn looks uncomfortable with this, but Jace nods. Done. And if this goes wrong, if the modifications fail, you don't blame me when your superiors ask questions. Kaelra, Jace says quietly, if this goes wrong, we'll probably all be too dead to answer questions. She stares at him for a moment, then barks out a laugh. It's the first time she's laughed in months, and the sound surprises all three of them. All right, she says, let's build something impossible. The next 2 weeks blur together in a haze of circuits, neural pathways, and controlled explosions. Kaelra works 18-hour days, stopping only when exhaustion makes her hands shake too badly to hold her tools. Jace brings her food and pretends not to notice when she talks to herself in rapid-fire Varnai while troubleshooting problems. Quinn maintains a respectful distance but asks surprisingly insightful questions about power distribution and fail-safe protocols. It's the closest thing to normal Kaelra has experienced since childhood. The first major breakthrough comes on day 9. She's been struggling with the neural interface's tendency to overcorrect user movements when her comm chirps with an incoming message. The sender ID makes her freeze. It's from Dareth. She almost deletes it without reading, but curiosity wins over self-preservation. The message is short, formal, and devastating. Sister, I have been informed of your current location and activities. The family council is displeased. Your association with humans reflects poorly on our bloodline. I am required to inform you that further contact between us is inadvisable. May your path lead to honor. Dareth. Kaelra stares at the message for a long time. Then she deletes it and gets back to work. But something has changed. Her movements are sharper, more aggressive. She's not just building prosthetics anymore. She's proving a point. That night, as she works alone in the dimly lit lab, Jace finds her rewiring the neural interface with surgical precision. You're angry, he observes. I'm focused. Angry and focused aren't mutually exclusive. She doesn't respond, but her hands pause for just a moment. Jace pulls up a chair and sits down beside her at his workstation. Want to talk about it? No. Okay. He's quiet for a while, watching her work. You know, when I was a kid, my father told me I'd never amount to anything because I spent too much time taking apart electronics instead of playing sports. Kaelra's hands slow slightly. He said I was wasting my potential, that real men build things, not tear them apart to see how they work. Now she stops entirely, looking at him for the first time all evening. I spent years trying to prove him wrong. Graduated top of my engineering class, got recruited for the Colonial Survey Corps design navigation systems that are still in use today. And you know what? He never once said he was proud of me. Jace leans back in his chair. It took me a long time to realize that his approval wasn't the prize I thought it was. That proving myself to someone who refused to see my worth was like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. Kaelra is very still. What changed? I met people who valued what I could do instead of judging me for what I couldn't. People who saw my curiosity as a strength, not a weakness. He stands up, heading for the door. The thing about family, Kaelra, is that sometimes the people who share your blood are the least qualified to understand your worth. After he leaves, Kaelra sits in the silence for a long time. Then she picks up her tools and gets back to work. But now she's not working angry, she's working with purpose. The breakthrough comes 3 days later. Instead of trying to impose standard movement patterns, Kaelra programs the neural interface to learn from the user. Not just their intended movements, but their unique way of thinking about movement. She creates adaptive protocols that evolve in real time, building a symbiotic relationship between organic and artificial systems. It's elegant, it's revolutionary, and when she runs the first simulation, it's also completely terrifying. The power requirements spike beyond anything in the safety protocols. The neural feedback loops create patterns that existing medical knowledge can't predict. By every conventional standard, what she's built should either fail spectacularly or kill its user within minutes. But according to her calculations, if it works, it won't just restore normal mobility. It will create something entirely new, something better than what nature originally provided. She's so absorbed in her work that she doesn't notice Quinn approaching until the sergeant clears her throat. How's it looking? Kaelra doesn't look up from her screens. Terrifying. Good terrifying or bad terrifying? That depends on your perspective. From a safety standpoint, this is the worst idea anyone has ever had. From an engineering standpoint, it's probably genius. Quinn studies the readouts over Kaelra's shoulder. The data streams are moving too fast for her to follow, but she can see the pattern complexity. And from your perspective, Kaelra finally turns around. Her eyes are bright with exhaustion and something that might be hope. From my perspective, it's the first thing I've ever built that might actually be worthy of the person who's going to use it. Quinn nods slowly. When do we test it? Tomorrow, if you're sure you want to risk it. Kaelra, Quinn says quietly, I've spent my entire career taking calculated risks, but this isn't about calculation anymore. This is about faith. She pauses at the doorway. And I have faith in you. After Quinn leaves, Kaelra stares at the completed prosthetics for a long time. Tomorrow, she'll find out if her faith in herself is justified. Tomorrow, she'll discover whether the girl who was declared incomplete can create something perfect. Tomorrow, she'll learn whether broken things can still break barriers. But tonight, for the first time in her life, she allows herself to believe that the answer might be yes. The morning of the test, Kaelra wakes before dawn with her heart hammering against her ribs. She's dreamed the same dream 3 times, the prosthetics overloading her nervous system, burning out Jace and Quinn standing over her broken body with expressions of profound disappointment. Not because she's dying, but because she's failed them. It's a fear he's never had to confront before because she's never had anyone whose opinion mattered enough to fear losing. She finds Jace in the lab, running final diagnostics on the neural interface. His movements are precise, methodical, but she can see the tension in his shoulders. Second thoughts, she asks. Third and fourth thoughts, he admits. But not about the technology, about whether we're asking too much of you. Kaelra settles into her mobile support frame, the makeshift wheelchair she built from salvaged parts years ago. You're not asking, I'm volunteering. There's a difference between volunteering and feeling obligated. She's quiet for a moment, watching the diagnostic data scroll across the screens. When I was 8 years old, I asked my mother why the gods made me incomplete. She told me that sometimes the gods create broken things so that other people can prove their worth by fixing them. Jace stops what he's doing. I spent years believing that my purpose was to be someone else's project, someone else's charity case, someone else's opportunity to feel good about themselves. She meets his eyes directly. This is the first time I've ever built something for myself. The first time my worth isn't measured by how grateful I am for someone else's pity. So no, Jace. I don't feel obligated, I feel liberated. Quinn arrives an hour later with a portable medical scanner and enough emergency medical supplies to stock a small hospital. She takes one look at the final prosthetic configuration and whistles low. That is either the most beautiful piece of engineering I've ever seen or the most elaborate suicide device. Both, Kaelra says cheerfully. The best innovations usually are. The installation process takes 3 hours. The prosthetics attach at nerve clusters along Kaelra's lower spine, requiring precise alignment of both mechanical and biological components. Jace handles the technical integration while Quinn monitors vital signs, and Kaelra tries very hard not to think about the fact that one calibration error could leave her paralyzed from the waist up. When the final connection clicks into place, Kaelra feels nothing. No sudden sensation of legs, no rush of phantom feeling. Just the familiar weight of her upper body and a slight humming sensation where the neural interface meets her spine. Neural sync initializing. Jace reports watching his readouts. Integration at 15%, 20, 30. The humming gets stronger. Kaelra closes her eyes and tries to feel for the prosthetics the way she would reach for any other tool. Like extending her consciousness into a machine. 50% neural pathways mapping. Kaelra tries to think about standing. She does, and something extraordinary happens. The prosthetics don't just respond to her intention to stand. They anticipate it. They feel like they're learning from her thoughts, adapting to the way her mind works instead of forcing her to adapt to them. 70%. Integration stabilizing. Kaelra opens her eyes and for the first time in her life pushes herself to her feet. The sensation is indescribable, not like walking with artificial limbs, but like discovering that she always had legs and just never knew how to use them. The prosthetics don't feel foreign. They feel like coming home to a body she was always meant to have. She takes a step, then another. Then she starts to run. Not the careful, measured gait of someone learning to use prosthetics, but the fluid, predatory stride of a Varnai warrior. The movements her people have perfected over millions of years of evolution, now available to her for the first time. She's so caught up in the sensation that she almost doesn't notice the proximity alarms. 3 ships are approaching fast from orbit. Varnai-designed military configuration. They are not scheduled arrivals. "Kaelra," Quinn says, her voice tight with tension, "please tell me you were expecting company." Kaelra's blood turns to ice water. She recognizes the lead ship's configuration. Heavy cruiser house Mortok colors, her family's at ship. "They're here for me." The ships land in the complex's main courtyard with the kind of precision that speaks of hostile intent. 60 Varnai warriors disembark, all in full combat armor, all moving with the coordinated efficiency of an elite unit. And at their head, resplendent in the dark blue armorer of a tactical commander, is Dareth. He's grown since she last saw him. Taller, broader, with the kind of natural authority that comes from never doubting your place in the world. His armor bears the scars of real combat, and his movements have the deadly grace of someone who has killed and expects to kill again. When he sees Kaelra standing on her new legs, his expression doesn't change. But something flickers in his eyes that might be surprise. "Sister," he says formlessly, "you have been recalled. By whose authority? The family council. Your activities here have brought shame upon our house. Your association with humans, your participation in unauthorized technological experimentation, your refusal to accept your proper place in society." He gestures to the assembled warriors. "You will return with us to face judgment." Kaelra looks at the 60 soldiers, then at Jason Quinn. The humans have their hands on their weapons, but they're outnumbered 20 to 1. This isn't a fight they can win through violence. "And if I refuse," Dareth's hand moves to his weapon, "then you will be classified as a rogue asset and dealt with accordingly." The threat hangs in the air like smoke from a plasma discharge. Kaelra feels the weight of decisions settling on her shoulders. She can go with them and save Jason Quinn's lives. She can accept judgment from people who declared her worthless before she'd learned to speak. She can return to being incomplete, or she can choose a different path. "I want to show you something first," she says. Before Dareth can respond, she moves, not toward the weapons cache or the communication array or any of the obvious tactical targets. Instead, she heads for the training area where Quinn has set up combat simulation equipment. "Kaelra, what are you doing?" Jace calls after her, proving a point. The training area contains a Varnai combat simulation pod, a piece of equipment designed to test warrior reflexes against progressively more difficult opponents. It's the same type of machine used in military academies across Varnai space. Kaelra approaches the pod and inputs a command sequence. The machine hums to life, projecting a holographic opponent armed with traditional Varnai weapons. "Level 7, she announces, loud enough for all 60 warriors to hear. There's a murmur of surprise from the assembled soldiers. Level 7 is elite tier, the kind of challenge reserved for veteran fighters. Most academy graduates never progress beyond level 5. Sister Dareth says, his voice carrying a warning, "This is not necessary." "Isn't it?" Kaelra asks. "You came here to judge whether I belong among the Varnai. Let me show you what I've become." The holographic opponent attacks with the speed and precision of a master warrior. Traditional Varnai combat is all about leveraging natural advantages, armor claws, tail balance, aggressive momentum. Kaelra has none of these things. What she has instead is something no Varnai warrior has ever possessed: perfect integration between biological intuition and artificial enhancement. She doesn't fight like a traditional Varnai. She fights like something new. Her movements are faster than biology should allow, more precise than standard neural interfaces can manage. When the holographic opponent strikes, she doesn't just dodge. She anticipates the attack before it begins moving with the kind of prescient grace that comes from a mind perfectly synchronized with its tools. The battle lasts 30 seconds. When it's over, the holographic warrior is destroyed and Kaelra is standing perfectly still, not even breathing hard. The assembled warriors are silent. "Level 8, Kaelra announces. This time, the holographic opponent is armed with energy weapons and advanced armor. The kind of enemy that would challenge an entire squad of regular soldiers. Kaelra destroys it in 20 seconds. Level 9. Now the simulation spawns 3 opponents simultaneously. Elite warriors, each one capable of defeating most living fighters in single combat. 15 seconds. Level 10. The final level. Reserved for legend tier warriors, the kind of fighters who appear in Varnai history books. No one in living memory has ever completed level 10. Kaelra faces 6 opponents armed with the most advanced weapons in Varnai military history. They attack from all directions with coordinated precision. She dances between them like gravity has become optional. Her prosthetics don't just respond to her thoughts. They amplify them, turning her intentions into reality faster than conscious thought. She moves like water, like lightning, like something that was never bound by the limitations of flesh and bone. When the simulation ends, she's standing in the center of a circle of defeated holograms, and every warrior in the courtyard is staring at her with something approaching awe. Dareth removes his helmet with shaking hands. "How?" he whispers. Kaelra turns to face him, and for the first time in their lives, he's the one looking up at hers. "You taught me," she says quietly. "All of you. Every time you told me I was incomplete, you taught me to find completeness in places you never thought to look. Every time you said I was broken, you taught me to rebuild myself stronger. Every time you abandoned me, you taught me the value of people who choose to stay." She gestures to Jace and Quinn. "These humans didn't see a broken Varnai when they looked at me. They saw potential. They saw someone worth investing in. They saw someone worth believing in." Her voice grows stronger. "I don't need your respect, Dareth. I don't need the family council's approval. I don't need to prove my worth to people who decided I was worthless before they ever gave me a chance." She takes a step toward him, and he instinctively steps back. "But I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember that the sister you threw away became something none of you could ever imagine. Not despite being incomplete, but because of it." Dareth stares at her for a long moment. When he speaks, his voice is barely audible. "The council won't accept this. They'll send more ships. Bigger ones." "Let them come," Kaelra says. "I'm not hiding anymore." That evening, after the Varnai ships have departed and the adrenaline has faded, Kaelra finds herself sitting on the observation deck with Jace and Quinn. Above them, the stars of Kaelra Prime paint the sky in familiar patterns. "So," Quinn says, breaking the comfortable silence. "What happens now?" Kaelra flexes her new legs, still marveling at the sensation of complete mobility. "Now I figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life. Any ideas?" She's quiet for a moment, thinking. "I've spent my whole life trying to prove I belong somewhere. Maybe it's time to stop trying to fit into spaces that were never designed for me and start building my own." Jace leans back against the railing. "Sounds like you might need some partners for a project like that." "I might," Kaelra admits, "if I could find the right people. People who see possibility where others see problems. People who believe that broken things can still break barriers." Quinn grins. "Funny thing about humans, we specialize in impossible projects." As they sit together under the alien stars, Kaelra realizes that she's found something she never knew she was looking for. Not acceptance from the people who rejected her, but partnership with people who chose her. Not a place in a world that had no room for her, but the opportunity to build a better world entirely. For the first time in her life, she's not thinking about what she lacks. She's thinking about what she can create, and the possibilities are infinite. 3 months later, the Kaelra Prime Research Facility receives its first official designation as an independent technological development zone. The facility specializes in adaptive engineering solutions with a particular focus on human-alien collaborative projects. Its chief innovation officer is a young Varnai engineer who walks on legs that shouldn't exist and designs impossible things for a living. Her first project is a new type of prosthetic system, one that doesn't try to restore what was lost, but instead creates something entirely new. The prototype testing is being conducted in partnership with disabled veterans from 17 different species. The early results are extraordinary, but more than that, they're giving hope to people who had forgotten how to dream of being more than they are. Kaelra's second project is even more ambitious. She's designing a new kind of space station, one built specifically for beings who don't fit into standard categories. A place where the incomplete can become something unprecedented. A home for everyone who has ever been told they don't belong. Construction begins next year. When reporters ask her about the inspiration for her work, Kaelra's answer is always the same. I spent my life thinking I had nothing to offer because I was born broken. Turns out I was just waiting for the right system to plug into. But she pauses, smiling at something only she can see, and the right people to help me debug the code. If you believe that broken things can still break barriers, that incomplete people can create something unprecedented, that the most extraordinary solutions sometimes come from the most unexpected places, then this story is for you. If you're someone who's ever felt like you don't quite fit into the spaces the world has prepared for you, remember Kaelra's words? Maybe the problem isn't that you're broken. Maybe you're just waiting for the right system to plug into. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories about humans and aliens, proving that the impossible is just another engineering challenge. Drop a comment and tell us about a time when someone saw potential in you that you didn't see in yourself. And remember, whether you're human, alien, or something in between, you have something valuable to offer this universe. We're just getting started with these stories, and we'd love to have you along for the journey. Until next time, keep building impossible things.